Bonnie Wright. Give it up. You can do better than that. Thanks for coming back. So good to see you.
Go. Hello.
Hi, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I'm
So
pleased
nice
to be here.
Yeah. So before we get to questions from the audience, if you don't mind, I have like one or two, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So I know you're, aside from the work in the Harry Potter films, you've been more active in writing and directing. What have you learned as an actor as far as writing and directing?
Oh, yeah, good question. I mean, I couldn't have had a better sort of film school type experience than working on Harry Potter. I was always very, very curious as to how everything kind of worked behind the scenes. We were so fortunate that everyone who did anything to do with Harry Potter was always really, really good at their craft when it came to, designing the sets or the music or the props or the creatures you see. There's just so many different practices of people within those sets that I learned so much from, and I feel very fortunate that a lot of them had the patience and time to answer my probably annoying questions like, what does that do, and why are you doing that, and how does that work? So it really inspired me to, when I went to college, I studied film and majored in directing and writing, and that was really why, because of being introduced to this world I didn't know anything about, obviously, when I was 9 years old. So I really, really fell in love with all the creative endeavors that go into making a film be like that, like the world building that those people are so good at. So yeah, I learned a lot too when it came to acting, having been directed by directors from the actor's perspective. That really helped me to then direct actors, because I feel like there's a certain type of kind of language and relationship that you want to build with actors that kind of has, you don't want to overly direct someone, but you don't want to leave someone kind of not knowing what they're meant to be doing in a scene. So that striking that balance, and because we had so many directors even within Harry Potter, it was really lovely to see how differently you can direct. There isn't just one way to do it. So that made me feel okay with whatever way I ended up doing it.
Any directors in particular that influenced you outside of Harry Potter directors? Any that you studied?
That's a good one. There's a British director called Andrea Arnold that I really like. I like John Cassavetes' films. And I didn't at the time really know Alfonso Cuarón's movies outside of when he came into Harry Potter, because I was only like 13, so I hadn't seen a lot of his films. But I am actually a massive fan of his work, both before Harry Potter and the kind of work that he's directed since.
So before we get to the questions, one more. How do you balance both careers?
Well, they both, inform each other. I mean, I have really stepped predominantly just behind the camera. Now I don't really act that much. It's been really nice to have a break, having done that for a really long time. I found myself quite happy, actually, behind the camera. I'm definitely an introvert, so sometimes being behind the camera is more where I feel more confident. And yeah, I guess all things inform each other. It's all just a different medium of storytelling. And same for me, having done the directing, and then in recent years I wrote a book that came out earlier this year, which is an entirely different subject of the environment and sustainability, which is another big passion of mine. But all of it everything is just one expression of the next thing, and it's all just my love for storytelling. And sometimes new stories come that surprise me, like I never thought I'd write this book if someone told me 5 years ago, but I did, so things can surprise you.
Nice. Now, would you mind getting some questions from the audience?
Of course,
I can't wait. Raise your hand, we'll come around. If you're in an aisle, why don't you come out to the middle, or we'll go to this side. Actually, let's make it easy, right here down front. Right? No, right here.
Oh, I think she had a question.
You have the question.
Sorry, I just came up with this question like 2 seconds ago. How do you feel that your time like filming in Harry Potter kind of, how did it like affect your career, and how do you feel that if you weren't in Harry Potter, how it would affect your career in that way?
Oh, yeah. I guess when things happen, you never know what it would be like without them. Like sometimes when I try and think about the childhood I had or my like teenage years without Harry Potter, it's hard to imagine only knowing that as my lived experience. But yeah, I mean, it massively affected my life and career substantially. It completely enabled me to have this foundation of kind of how I was saying, this kind of education and learning around the film industry. But I think what I later realized when I started working on other film sets was Harry Potter was actually very, very unique in the sense of its scale. Like so many films are not made at that scale. So it was very interesting stepping from those kind of films where there's hundreds and hundreds of people on a set in any given day, and then you go and work on another film and there could only be sort of 40 people or even less on a set. So it made me kind of have to like rewire my kind of mind as I step forward into new parts of my career to kind of reestablish what different film sets can feel like. So even though I learned so much, I kind of also had to learn a lot more once I stepped out of Harry Potter and how different my career would be based on the fact that many other productions are just different. Thank you.
We're going to stay on this side of the room for 2 more questions, then we're going to go to the other side of the room.
Do you think there will be another Harry Potter movie in the future?
Oh, you know, I'm as much in the dark as you are on this. I feel like everyone wants a film or a TV show to be made of the cursed child, which I feel like, would you all want that? I feel everyone would probably want that.
Of course.
So yeah, I don't know. Keep making that known to the world, and maybe it'll be made. But honestly, yeah, sadly, I don't know.
And
We'll
right
see.
back on this side of the room.
Hi. Did you originally audition for Ginny, or did you audition for another part? And then, if there was another Harry Potter movie, would you be in it?
Oh, well, yeah. So I did audition for Ginny. When I actually first went for the first audition, because Ginny doesn't have any, well, she ends up having the line of good luck at platform 9 3/4, but that actually wasn't in the script. That was kind of that was a line that happened on the day. So when I went to audition, even though I was definitely auditioning for Ginny, I had to read a Hermione scene because I didn't have any scenes of me talking. And it was actually my older brother, Lewis, who had read the first few Harry Potter books, who very specifically was like, you should go and audition for Ginny Weasley. So he was the one who really like saw me as that character. So I'm grateful to his vision for that. But at the time, I hadn't read the books. I was, 9 years old, and before the first audition, I quickly read the first book, and then I just fell in love with the series, and we all as a family would read every book as it came out. So yeah, it was always very specifically Ginny. And would I play Ginny again? I would, yes. I would go back and be in another film and play Ginny, yeah.
Let's head to the far side of the room over here for 2 more questions, then we'll bounce around a bit.
Hi, I just want to say first before my question, we're actually born on the same day, February 17th, so that's really cool. And my question is, what was your favorite memory of working on Harry Potter, like one of your favorite memories of working on set?
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm pleased we share a birthday. Happy birthday in a couple of months. My favorite, I think all my like fondest, warmest memories were always anything to do with the Weasley family. I always felt so like lucky that I didn't just have my Hogwarts and Gryffindor family, but I had my own little Weasley family. And I felt very supported by that. I think particularly in the first few films when I was like very young and everything was very new and overwhelming. Julie Walters, who also plays Mrs. Weasley, was always really good at making me feel very safe, and she was very motherly in her spirit. So anything that was with the Weasley family, like the Burrows was one of my favorite sets, and I probably had the most like goofing around and like funny scenes with the other actors that played all my brothers, and have stayed really close friends with them. So yeah, anything to do with the Weasley family.
Let's stay back there for another question.
So I know James and Oliver Phelps talked about when they did the voice acting for the games, they spent like 4 hours going, ah! Did they make you do that? And is there anything that's different but interesting about voice acting versus actual acting?
Yeah, we definitely did different game recordings of different, like you say, those weird sounds of, I don't know, any other eventual way you can find yourself through the game and the sound effects you can make. And they also, when we did ADR, which is like the additional voice recording you do once they've edited the film, and maybe they need to like pick up a line that they didn't have a good recording of, or they need like, you're running in a scene and you need to like be heavily breathing and running. So it is quite, you find yourselves in like, you've been doing some weird sound effects for like an hour and you're like, what is this job? This is, you're just jumping up and down and breathing into a microphone. So sometimes it is quite bizarre and you realize how much sound we all make in our lives, and like the complexity of sound design like needs all those layers, and that's why it's so good and feels so like visceral and real. But yeah, my experience of, I've done some different voices for things that are like animated, or I've also done audiobooks that I really enjoy. Like I think, like I was saying before, I'm quite happily been more behind the camera recently, but voice is actually something that I've kind of enjoyed because it's just that focus of voice rather than the performance too. So I can still have my behind the camera feeling, but still do the kind of acting and performance that I like. It was very surreal. I did the audio for my own book that I wrote, Go Gently, and it was actually very hard reading out loud the words that I had written, because you can't not be like thinking or judging them. When you read someone else's, you're just like bringing a whole new life to it. So it was quite a surreal experience, like doing the audio book for my own book, but it was fun.
We're going to get another question from that other far side of the room. It's kind of behind the pillar.
Working with the great Alan Rickman, was there any memories you had with him?
Yeah, I feel like my memories of him were honestly being terrified of him, because he was so good at staying in his character. And I think he genuinely like loved, like he knew how helpful that would be for our performance. Like a lot of people, like they're not doing that to sort of like annoy you or toy with you. They're actually doing it to help bring out the character that, you know, he is and how we are with him. But I think as we slowly got a bit older, I feel like by like the fifth film, that sort of wall kind of broke as he knew that we were kind of more comfortable and confident in our acting. And then suddenly he was like, oh, you were just toying with us that whole time. So he had a very like cheeky kind of quality to him, which I really loved and enjoyed. And actually his diaries that just came out, a book of his diaries, I don't know if you've seen, but I actually read the foreword for that audiobook, which is talking about audiobooks. And it was really lovely it was written by Emma Thompson, the actress Emma Thompson, the foreword to his diaries. Yeah, and I really loved reading the foreword and reading all the diary entries and just feeling like I learned so much more about him as a person. And they go through the Harry Potter years and different things. So I really enjoy, if you want to get to know him more, I think it's called Madly Deeply, the diaries that just came out a couple of months ago. But I really loved getting to know a bit more about him in that book.
And we're going to head over to this side of the stage now, right down front. We got a couple questions.
Hello, Bonnie. Wonderful to have you with us. Merry Christmas. So my biggest question I've always wanted to ask you is, what are your favorite moments and scenes that you did while working on the Harry Potter movies? And since you mentioned Alan Rickman, what would you say are your fondest memories of working with Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid?
Yeah, great question. I loved working with Robbie Coltrane. Hagrid was actually my favorite character when I read the books. Yeah, I thought he was like the uncle that everyone wants. So it was really sad. Obviously, he recently passed away, and again, similar to Alan, like they were so instrumental in helping all of us to feel happy and confident and challenged as well, which I think we needed as we grew up on the film set. So I had many scenes with Hagrid, probably more than I did with Snape. So I'm grateful that I had all those memories and moments. And he too was just like hilarious. Like he had the ability to make you just like cackle very loud. So he was great. And he is Hagrid. I mean, to me, he's just in himself and in his personality, he is Hagrid. But favorite scenes of mine. I mean, a massive turning point for me was obviously the Chamber of Secrets, even though I was predominantly lying dead on the floor most of the time. I was like, am I going to wake up today? Like, no, probably won't get to that yet. I was like, oh, okay. I'll just stay lying down on the floor, in the puddles on the floor. But that whole, pivot, the fact that my character suddenly became more pivotal to the narrative was obviously like a massive step for me, and it was very challenging for me because I was only, I think, 11 or 10. And it's obviously quite dark. There were like lots of scenes that we did that never actually made the cut of the film, which were like more of the kind of cutaways of Ginny being kind of taken over by the diary and by Tom Riddle. So yeah, it was a very massive step for me, and it was challenging. So the Chamber of Secrets and that scene was to me a kind of like a turning point of my experience and of Ginny.
All right, and another one down front again. Oh, you, okay.
Based off of your own personality, what Hogwarts house would you put yourself in?
Oh, that is a good question. I have done the Pottermore sorting. In fact, they filmed us doing the Pottermore filming. So if you want to see me finding out what house I am, which is just Gryffindor as well. I was also a Gryffindor. I think in the video, I look very pleased that I was like, whew, phew, I'm Gryffindor too. But I've always been like, oh, it'd be fun to have been like more surprised, actually. I always, for playing such a kind of Gryffindor-y character for so long, I always wanted to be like, put the hat on of a Slytherin and be something else for the experience. So if I were to ever hope to be in another house, I think it would actually have been Slytherin. But I still have not done my Patronus. So I need to do that. Has anyone done their Patronus? Yeah, lots of people. I think I'm so obsessed with the ocean and like sea creatures that I'm really scared to find out my Patronus in case it isn't from the sea. So I'm just like, I've just decided what mine is before I take the test, but I should take the test. Thanks.
And one down the middle.
I was just curious if you've ever been to Universal Studios, to the Harry Potter world, and what you thought about it.
I have. I love theme parks, but I haven't been since must have been about 4 years ago. And I think since there's definitely been many more new parts of the world being built. So I definitely need to go back. But I remember so vividly when we all went, we were still filming actually, I think the last film when it opened, and we all went together to Universal for the kind of like opening and launch. And I remember all of us were honestly so kind of surprised in a good way that it's so like, it was even more magical and real than the sets were, because on the sets, it's a working set. There's cameras, there's things that break the magic and the kind of world, where this feels like, you turn a corner and there's something there. Like there's so much to look at. And I love that they worked with a lot of the people who were in the art department and on the sets to bring that to life. Like it wasn't just a whole new group of people that had their interpretation. Like it's very, it feels authentic and it feels real to the world. And I love that they're able to design more things that we don't get to do, like butterbeer. We never had butterbeer, obviously, on set. That probably would have been bad if we were like all drinking sugar every day. But I loved having it when we got there. And so, yeah, these fun, more like interactive experiences I loved. And honestly, I just love watching people enter the park and just seeing people's faces and of all ages and all generations, it really brings out this like childlike fun in people that I think is really important.
And this young lady has a question. Why don't you step out, please?
When you were little, did you ever think you would be an actress?
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't really. I don't think at 9 years old I knew what I wanted to do. Or if I did, it maybe changed hour to hour or day to day, as it probably does when you're younger. I definitely always loved like taking part in things. Like at school, I always was someone who wanted to like join up into anything. And I think acting kind of has that nature, like the idea of wanting to take part in a group activity. Like it's a very team playing, collaborative job to find yourself in. You can't act alone. You need a whole crew and fellow actors to work together. So that was probably in my nature, to kind of want to show up and work with other people. But I never thought I would act when I was younger. And like I say, I probably hadn't even given it much thought by that age. So it was really something for me that grew through the films. It was really something that kind of happened to me slightly more than me going out to sort of seek it.
Okay, let's head over to the other side of the room. Mike will have a question or two over there, then we'll bounce back here.
Have you ever taken any souvenirs from the set?
Oh, later I figured out everyone seemed to take things, and I missed out on this experience. Like you asked Matt Lewis, he could give you a long list of the things that he took. And quite happily and openly, I'm not telling you any secret, he will tell you all the different things he took. No, I didn't. I literally didn't take anything. So I now wish I had some things that were heavily guarded, the wands specifically, were any scene we had a wand, it was they had a list of our names, and it was they were checking in and checking out the wand every scene. So you couldn't even leave the set without giving your wand back to the props people. So I never probably could have got away with a wand. But there were some things now in hindsight I would have loved to have, just simple things like my Gryffindor robes and outfit, or some of my very Weasley knitted sweaters and things like that. But no, I just have to go to the Harry Potter tour and see them in glass boxes instead. So no, in hindsight, I should have, but maybe I'm a good human being that I didn't steal the props.
Let's stay on that side of the room for a few more questions.
Yeah, my question is, I love you as Ginny Weasley, but wondering when you found out you'd marry Harry.
Oh yeah, that was a scary moment. I was always quite a slow reader. I still am quite a slow reader. So when it came to the books, my brother was already finished, and I'm on page 120. So I remember with that book, he was better hurry up, better get reading. I was or friends would be oh, have you got to page, this isn't the page, but let's say, you got to page 326 yet? I'm no, what happens on page 326? So I remember being slowly getting to that moment, and it was this bizarre mixture of being so excited that that's Ginny's development, but then oh no, I have to actually do this and do it justice. And so yeah, there was always that pressure for all of us that for everyone, we all have our own interpretation of the characters and of the world, and there was always it was always quite scary to kind of do the character justice or do the scenes justice. But I feel when we were on the sets, it was always so important to just focus on how it had been written in the script and how it was interpreted in the script. But I do wish sometimes so much more of the kind of character development between Ginny and Harry had seen it to the screen, which it kind of just didn't get to be. And I kind of wish that we could have had 4 or 5 hour long films, each one, and everything could have been in the books, in the movies. But that would have taken us, we probably still would have been filming them right now if we'd have done that. So yeah, there's lots of Ginny that I just had to know and perform into it. But yeah, it was definitely a scary and exciting character development.
Same side of the room, third aisle. You could stand up, come on out. Got time for about 3 or 4 more questions. She'll be headed back to her booth to sign. Am I correct, or do you have a photo op next? Do you have a photo op next, or you're going back to the booth?
I have a lunch break.
You have a lunch break. Awesome. Good on you.
Scheduled eating time.
Ah, yes. We won't cut into that.
Yes, my question is, with all the seasoned actors that you worked with on the films, was there any best advice that any of them gave you?
Oh, that was a good question. Yeah, best advice from any of the actors. Do you know, I think what I appreciate now, which took me some time towards the end, is that they didn't overly kind of give us advice or talk to us too much. I think because they wanted us to find our confidence. Because I think we all know what it's like when you're a kid and you're told over and over again by someone, and even if they're not trying to patronize you, sometimes as a child you feel like you're being patronized. So I love that their best advice they could give us was challenging us in scenes. Like, I think it was like less directly said, like, oh, why don't you try this or do this, or this is what I think, because I think that maybe would have like confused my brain at that age. Like, wow, this is too much. Like, one person's telling me to do this and the other person's telling me to do it like that. So a lot of their advice, honestly, was just was kind of shown through how much they respected us as well, that we weren't just kids, like we were also fellow actors with them. So I think that just instilled like a confidence without needing to have words. And like I say, Julie Walters, who played Mrs. Weasley, she always was like so good at just making me like just say things that weren't even to do with acting, but they were just to do with like the kind of things your mother says to you, or kind of someone that you look up to says to you. So yeah, it wasn't any specific advice. It was more just like, you got this, like keep going. And that enabled me to like, yeah, find the confidence.
Let's do 2 questions on this side of the room real quick.
Hi. I'm a Phil Collins fan, so I was curious, did you ever watch Buster with Julie Walters and Phil Collins? And also, when you did the Chamber of Secrets and you have that shock face when you see Harry, what was Chris Columbus's direction and motivation for you?
Oh, I haven't seen that film, so I need to see that film. Chris Columbus's direction. Well, it was like, I can't even remember his direction, but I guess that moment is this idea that, you know, she just suddenly gasps and wakes up out of her slumber of this kind of horrible situation she's in. So I think she's just in this kind of sudden panic, but like relief. And I remember he was always like eyes wide. He was always like, he was really obsessed with your eyes, in the sense that like if your body and your words are performing it, but your eyes aren't conveying the scene, then like people won't connect with you. I think, as we all know, like eye contact, or how someone's welling up in their eyes or laughing through their eyes, like your eyes are actually a very kind of vulnerable and open, like cool space to act from. So he was really good at making sure you connected not just your words and your face, but also with your eyes. So he was always like eyes wide. Like that's one thing I always remember him saying, and it helped. I think my eyes were like about to burst out of my head in that scene, but I really took his direction to heart.
Let's do 2 more questions, and then you can head to lunch.
So in the Harry Potter films, what was the most memorable deleted scene that you were a part of that never actually made it to the films?
Oh, well, a memorable scene that I did, which I don't know if it was like positively memorable, it was actually scary, but it's like I was saying in the Chamber of Secrets, there's a whole thing where obviously she gets taken over by the book, the diary, and we did all these like weird scenes of like me being taken over, like I'm in the kind of girls' bathroom and I'm running through the corridor, I'm trying to drown the book in the toilet, and then there was this quite dark scene which never made it in, which is like obviously Ginny is who writes all the scenes, like enemies of the air beware in blood on the corridor walls. That's Ginny who writes those. So they did a scene where I go into like Hogwarts chicken coop and essentially kill a chicken to get the blood to write on the wall. I was like, I don't know if this should be in the film. She just magically should make the blood. But on that day, there was all this like fake snow, and it was like me in the dark, like going into this chicken coop. And I got this massive piece of like fake snow in my eye, and it was like lodged in the back of my eye, and like no one could get it out. And my mum was like, okay, I think we're done with this scene. Let's like chicken scene. Let's kill the chicken, let's stop the chicken scene. And then we finally got this bit of plastic snow out of my eye, and it was quite an eventful day. So that was a scene that never made it to the films, which is probably a good thing.
So one thing, your booth is right out here. So she's going to be signing after lunch today. If you haven't had time for your question, she'd love to have you stop by her booth, sign the photo ops, all that. Our last question. And once again, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I think also a gentleman in the middle had a question too.
We'll get that one too. Mike, can you get the question in the middle as well?
If you still want to ask it.
No, it's
Sure.
Troy. Go ahead. We'll do Troy last.
My question is, what was it like working with Maggie Smith? And also, if you could teach any class at Hogwarts, what would it be?
Ooh, that's good. Maggie Smith she is like her character, the kind of like, you're always going to end up doing the wrong thing when she's around and then you get into trouble kind of thing. She was like very her character. I thought she was so brilliant. I always remember knowing exactly what kind of teacher she is. I feel like we've all had a Professor McGonagall, like in our own school experiences, which you kind of like love her, but also are terrified of her at the same time, which is like what a lot of teachers sometimes can feel, that you this kind of love-hate relationship. So I feel like she performed it just so well. Like I think there's no one else that could have played Professor McGonagall. And I was like, what does Trelawney play? Is it a divination? Is that? Yeah, I was like, that looks like a fun conceptual thing to teach. I'm very much into those kind of things. Or if they did like a geomancy class, which is basically like, do you know what geomancy is? It's like, yeah, the way we look at the earth and earth grids and ley lines and like the energies of the earth. That's what I would like to teach if they want to introduce that to Hogwarts.
And last question?
Yeah.
Well, it's like a two-parter. One, do you wish that Jenny was able to take out Beatrix instead of Mommy coming to the rescue? And two, did you have a crush on Daniel before Jenny got the crush on Harry?
Oh, that's a good question. So I definitely am pleased that I didn't get in the kind of moment between Bellatrix and Molly Weasley, because it was so fun being in the middle of that scene. Just watching these two actresses who could not wait to do that scene. Like they both used to, like weeks and weeks before, they were like, this scene's coming up. So I just like loved being in the middle of it. And it was just such a cool scene. I didn't, unfortunately, have a crush on Dan. That would have been quite hard to do if I did. I feel like everyone, I don't know how to describe it. It's like when you see every side of someone when you've spent 10 years with someone, especially when you're like kids into teenagers. It's like everything's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but you just see everyone for who they are and you see them as like brothers, and it was quite strange doing those scenes. And like the pressure of them, or all the crew there, and you're meant to be kind of having this romantic moment, but it's actually film sets are very kind of functional and very like non-romantic. So it was interesting to do. But thank you for your question. And I also, if anyone's interested in my book, Go Gently, I have some at my booth that I'm selling. So yeah.
Excellent. So nice.
Come by and read it.
Come by and read it. Come by and hang out. Give it up, Bonnie Wright.
Thank you.
Always great to have you back. Thank you. One more. Give it up. You do much better than that.
Hi, this is Aaron Ashmore, and you are watching Phantom Spotlight. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe like now. Oh, and have fun and follow your fandom.